Good afternoon. My name is Dave Jokum. I'm the Director of Business and Membership Development at the Longview Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to our webinar today. This afternoon is Restoring and Maintaining a Clean and Healthy Environment. So we are glad that you're joining us. Want to let you know a couple of things real quick. First, this webinar is being recorded, and it will be made available online on our website at longviewchamber.com. For those of you who are listening live to this, you'll receive an email later today with a link to listen to it again or to share with your friends. And we encourage you to share it with whoever you feel like needs to hear this. A couple of features on our platform that we're using on GoToWebinar here. First of all, you'll be muted throughout the presentation as the audience. So you'll be able to listen. You should be able to see the visual presentation that will be provided. If you don't see that right now, there should be a green and white opening slide on your computer. If you don't see that, you maybe have not clicked the flower icon down at the bottom of the screen. That is the GoToWebinar icon, so you might want to click that. If you have any trouble at all during the presentation, you can use the question box to send a note to the organizer to let them know of any issues you're having with the broadcast. And you can also use that question box to ask a question anytime throughout the presentation. You can throw a question in there and we'll get to those after our folks are finished with their presentation. We want you to know, as Longview Chamber of Commerce, we have been working really hard the last couple of weeks as we entered into this time of the COVID-19 crisis and kind of the shutdown we've all been in. And we've been thinking constantly about how to add value to our business community, how to help you answer questions you need answered. And we know that we don't have all the answers, but thankfully we are connected to a whole bunch of people who are experts in their fields, professionals in their fields, and they can help get you some of the answers that you need. Today, we have a couple of folks who serve much of our East Texas area. We have Aaron Florzakowski. He's the owner of Cloud Cleaning, and we have Steve Shaver of Sierra Supply and Packaging. Both of these organizations work to supply their customers with top quality facility supplies and full service cleaning for their work environment. So all of a sudden, we've all become very concerned about how clean things are, whether it's our hands or our desktop at work or our work environment, our door handles and all those kinds of things. So we're happy to have Aaron and Steve with us to help give us a little bit of guidance there. So Aaron, I'm going to turn it over to you right now.
Hey, thank you so much, Dave. We appreciate y'all and the Chamber giving us this opportunity to share unusual times that we're in. And so, yeah, we're excited to be here. My name is Aaron Florzakowski. I've been in the East Texas area since 2006. I moved here from Florida with my wife, Amanda, and brought 3 amazing sons, and I have 1 more amazing daughter. We've also got another one on the way in August, so we're really excited about that. In 2007, we opened a business called ChemDry of Longview, primarily focusing on carpets and upholstery cleaning, both residentially and commercially, in and around the East Texas area. And then just due to rapid growth at the request of our clients, we added some additional services. Just in 3 years, we added, 3 short years, we added tile, wood, air duct cleaning services, and then also a company called Cloud Cleaning, which we started to focus on commercial janitorial services. So we currently have 2 brands right now, Cloud Cleaning, again, serving commercial janitorial needs, and then Ease Carpet Cleaning, which handles all our commercial and residential floors and upholstery. I have asked Steve to join us. He is an incredible guy. He's a wealth of information for our company and for even me personally. I've enjoyed a great relationship with him over the past few years. And I think more than anything, with the wealth of information that he brings, he has the same focus on clients that we do. So just absolutely ecstatic to have Steve here with us as well. On a side note, Stephanie had asked me for some pictures, but Steve is so handsome, a camera couldn't contain him. So there's no pictures. I'm sorry. It's just a logo. But Steve and I are going to be bouncing back and forth during this presentation. And Steve, why don't you introduce yourself and then get us started into this presentation?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you, Aaron, and thank you to the Longview Chamber for even allowing us to visit, and very honored to be here today. My name is Steve Shaver, as Aaron already said. By the way, congratulations on the new addition, Aaron. That's something that was a little bit of a surprise to me, so that's fantastic, fantastic news. Congratulations to you and your wife. Again, my background is a little bit varied. I've been in this area now for over 30 years. Worked for Mother Frances Hospital for around 13 of those years. So I got a pretty good background. During that time, as we all do today, you had to wear a lot of different hats. I served as a director of environmental services through some of that time. I also chaired safety committees during that time, as well as sat on some focus groups for infection control. So not an expert at any of it, but I did get a lot of good introductions to a lot of different fields during that time. So it was a natural gravitation for me just to head towards the supply industry after that. And currently I work for Sierra Supply and Packaging, and I have for about the last 9 years. All in all, industry-wise, I have about 26 years of experience between the cleaning industry and the supply industry. So it starts with training, and it starts with good information is what I'll share with you. And I think Aaron and I are going to be able to get into some of that today for you. One of the main reasons that we wanted to even be a part of this podcast was that Aaron and I are very much in agreement. There's so much misinformation going on out there currently that we just wanted to try to clear it up as best we could, what we know to be the actual facts. I believe that I've heard this lately. It may have been from the mayor in Tyler, or maybe the mayor in Longview, but it was facts, not fear. And I think that's what everybody could use a lot of right now. So we want to present some facts to you. They're going to be information straight from the CDC. That is the biggest source of information that I could ever share with you. That would be, they're basically the ones that control healthcare when you get right down to it and support healthcare. So that's where all of our information will come from today. Good news is you can benchmark against that. You can go back and do your own homework, which we would definitely encourage you to do. But in the meantime, we're going to see what we can do for you. And let's just get into this right now, if that's all right with you, Aaron. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Okay. So I hope everybody's got the screen up now. Part of what we want to talk to you about today is, and this is going to go back to healthcare a little bit. One of the things they did for all of us, if you've ever worked in healthcare, this will resonate. But you always have to have a plan no matter what you're doing. And so part of what we want to visit with you guys today is whether you're still working at your office, whether you're at home, and like we are at my house. My wife is, she works at home now, so I've moved to the kitchen table. She's got the dining room table, and we're having all the fun that everybody else is. So one of the things, though, that we did is we have a plan in place for our family. And I'll just briefly cover that. We're disinfecting countertops and doorknobs and cabinet knobs throughout the day, various times. To a lot of people, that might sound like paranoia, but really we're just following the narrative that's being put forth right now, because there's just a lot of truth to what's being said there and why we need to currently wipe down those high traffic surfaces. Not going to spend a lot of time on that now, but Aaron will get into some of that later. But want to see people get a plan for their home. Want to see people get a plan for their office. If you're still working, make sure that you're communicating those plans to your office workers. Social distancing, everything that you've been hearing on the news lately. Make sure that they're all focused on that. One of the things that I like to talk about right now, and I just witnessed this yesterday as I was driving down the road, two gentlemen had their pickup trucks parked on the side of the road, and they were probably less than 3 foot apart talking. And maybe they were aware, maybe they were not. But the fact of the matter is, until that kind of stuff stops and we start paying more attention to that, this is going to be with us for a while. And so I just think that awareness needs to be put forth and communicated to, whether it's your home life or your office life. Let's be sure that we've got a plan in place. Another thing that I'll finish up with this one is react versus respond. When you have a plan, you're able to respond. When you don't have a plan, you're forced to react. So obviously, being able to respond is the better way to do that. Okay, next slide. Let's talk about flu facts for just a little bit. What is the flu? Well, the flu, or influenza as it It's a respiratory infection. It basically has different symptoms. We've all had it. We've all had to deal with it at some point. You get muscle aches with it. You get soreness. You get headaches. And generally, you run a fever. So enough said on that. We'll move to the next slide, and I'll pick up from there. As far as how it enters our body, it's not unlike what we're dealing with right now with COVID-19, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, but it's going to be through your nose, your eyes, and your mouth. So all of us, I can't remember the number I heard that our hand can touch our face or be up around our face over 200 and something times a day. When you think about answering your phone and where your hand is located when you're answering your phone, that makes perfect sense. We all take a lot of phone calls today. But in general, if you don't know the answer to something, I get the opportunity dealing with a lot of school districts now and teaching them how to disinfect. The kids, we've just watched it. We've done studies on it. You know, when they don't know the answer to something, it's real easy for you to put your hand up around your forehead or maybe on your chin. All of those things is all it takes to have a transfer point. And so want to make sure that you're aware of that. And I know it's hard to do, but it's something that if you can just, again, be aware, make sure that you're trying your best, use your inside of your forearm, whatever you have to do just to keep your hands away from your face in that situation. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk a little bit about type A influenza. That's generally what we're dealing with right now. The virus basically is capable of infecting animals. It jumps from animals to humans, then travels from human to human. Is basically how that works. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to get into all the specifics about influenza A. My job is more in line with how do you kill it? How do you create a healthy environment for people to work and go to school in? But what I will share with you, and this is what a lot of people don't know about this, is that, and this is very telling when we get into COVID-19 in a moment, the CDC tells us that influenza A can only live on a surface 90% of the time is what this is. 90% of it can only live there no more than 12 hours without having a host. A lot of people don't know that information. So when I get into these school districts, they want to scrub schools down, and I get that. They want to disinfect their schools. In reality, for the most part, if we're just dealing with influenza A, that school or that office area or your home is probably going to be okay by the next day if you don't do much of anything at all. A lot of people have a hard time believing that. Now, at the same time, what I'm going to tell you is that I do not believe you should do nothing. I think you have to clean. You have to clean surfaces, as we will talk about later. But bottom line is the influenza itself, influenza A, cannot live more than 12 hours. So you're pretty well safe by the time you go back to a building the next day. And I think that's important information for everybody to understand. Again, if we have the facts and we're able to build a program or a plan to combat them a lot easier. Next slide, please. Okay, influenza B. Influenza B is not something we typically hear a lot about. It's only found in humans. It's human-to-human contact. It's generally a lot less severe than type A. However, it can be severe. It can be harmful, extremely harmful, but it's very rare that it is. Also does not really cause pandemics. I don't think there's ever been a case where type B flu was a part of a pandemic. So just a little highlight reel on B. Again, we don't see a lot of it. Next slide. Okay, so let's just cover real quick. I know most of you know this, but pandemic versus or epidemic versus pandemic. Epidemic is just an event in which a disease is actively spreading. So if you had that just in a particular town or something, you start seeing a bit of an outbreak, we would consider that an epidemic. Of course, a pandemic, the World Health Organization just about 2 weeks ago went ahead and called what we're seeing right now a pandemic. So that means that it's reaching across continents and it's basically spreading across the world. So anyway, that's just a little tidbit of information. Next slide. Okay, so here's where we're going to get into some of the better stuff here, and I think mainly what people really want to know about right now, because it's currently what we're dealing with. Let's talk about COVID-19. So back in 2003, you had something called SARS. and it was a part of the coronavirus, or the coronavirus family, shall I say. You also had MERS. It's also a part of the coronavirus family. And so is COVID-19. So these three different viruses make that up. And so what's interesting about that is that the COVID-19 is generally comes from an animal. I think in this case, there's lots of different theories out there, and I'm not here to talk about those today. I just know that generally they think this basically evolved from a bat, but who really knows right now? It's strongly believed that it's transmitted through fecal matter. And where I'm not hearing that a lot in the news, that is a very big thing for everybody to understand, because that's going to make a lot of restrooms petri dishes. And so I really want you to take heed on that. Think about when you go to the restroom, first of all, and I'm going to be very candid in this podcast, but I know there's a lot of people that, they take their phones in the restroom with them. I would put that in your pocket or leave it on your desk or something, or leave it somewhere in the house. I would not take my phone to the restroom with me. That's the first thing you can do to eliminate this problem. The next thing is, we'll get into hand washing in a few, but when you go to turn the handle on and off, you need to make sure that you realize that when you turned that handle on, your hands were dirty, and when you turn it off, you recontaminated your hands or your skin. So it's better to turn the handle off with a paper towel, obviously, in that scenario. But just make sure that any surface that you're touching really in a restroom right now, especially the door handle on the way out the door, be very aware of that. Again, try to use a paper towel if you can. If this does, in fact, travel through fecal matter, then obviously all of the things I just mentioned are going to be tools in your toolkit to prevent you from getting sick. Okay, let's talk a little bit about why COVID-19 is so contagious. Part of what we're seeing right now is there's a 2-week incubation period. A lot of people don't even show the symptoms. Now, I know I'm sharing a lot of information with you right now that has already been talked about. You've probably heard more about it than you want to on the news. But again, I just want to share what I consider pertinent facts right now about this that makes this a tough thing to deal with currently. Part of that is the fact that it does have a 2-week incubation period, which means 2 people can be talking. One person could have it. Neither one of them realize that. And, weeks later, either they both have it or one of the people that had it to begin with goes ahead and starts showing symptoms. So the fact that you don't know it's there is tough to defend against. The main reason, the thing that concerns me the most, is the length of time that it can live on surfaces. As I told you before, influenza A will only live on a surface generally about 12 hours. Now, there have been cases, about 10% of the cases, it'll go up a little larger, more than that. But for the most part, it's going to be dead in 12 hours. This is very different. I'll just give you a couple of different surfaces here that will explain better what I'm trying to share. Copper, 4 hours. It'll live on copper for 4 hours. Cardboard is 24 hours. Stainless steel or steel, period, 72 hours. Plastics, 72 hours. Glass, 96 hours. Now let's think about our cell phones for a minute. You may have one of those plastic covers over your glass. Either way, you're looking at that cell phone, whether it's plastic or glass, you're somewhere between 72 and 96 hours. And as much as that is near our face, I just think that is going to be something you're going to want to clean on a regular basis, 3, 4, 5 times a day right now, just to make sure that you are minimizing your risk there. I have done swab tests with different monitors in healthcare. Spine and Joint Hospital is one of my accounts, so I work very closely with them in training. We also do swab tests on beds. We do swab tests on countertops. Basically, it's a monitor that will tell you a reading that's over 300 is considered unclean. Anything below 300 points is considered clean. Now, I'm fairly OCD, mainly because of the industry that I'm in, but I just am very, very, very aware of washing my hands currently, and even before this came along, I was that way. But I can share with you that as far as running a swab test across my phone, mine registered, and I clean this 3 or 4 times a day. So I want to make a very valid point here for you. Mine registered at almost a 1,500 the other day. We cleaned it with microfiber, cleaned it with a disinfectant, went back, swabbed it again, and got it down to a 65. But the real information here is 2 hours later, I pulled a score of an 863 off re-swabbing it. So that ought to tell everybody your steering wheel is another area you want to be wiping down, door handles, things like that in your car, your automobile that don't normally really get wiped down per se. So just some things like that. The last thing I want to talk to you about with COVID-19 is going to be 2 things. One, the droplets that they're talking now that the droplets can live for about 3 hours in the air. So I don't think they've fully confirmed that yet, but I think they're getting awfully close, and that is something I'm hearing now, which just really means that 6-foot rule is going to be something that can be the difference maker. The social distancing is going to have to come into play in order to really try to contain this. Okay, I think I'm ready to go to the next slide. All right. Okay, just real quick. This is just something that I pulled off the internet actually the other day, but I thought it would be good for people to hang up in their office areas and that kind of thing to make people aware. Washing your hands is going to be critical, obviously. Clean and disinfect commonly touched areas. One of the things that I want to share with you, they say disinfect commonly touched areas. The thing I would add to that is frequently, because once you have used a disinfectant and that disinfectant has dried, it no longer has a residue that continues killing. So please feel free to disinfect frequently throughout your house or your office. Restrooms, again, they're petri dishes right now, so make sure when you're cleaning in there, you're doing all the handles, anything that's a touch point that someone would have. Of course, do not touch your face would be another one. We talked about that. Work to create how to learn from home. You see a lot of school districts right now where they are trying to figure out ways to basically teach kids through telecommunication. It's not going as well as they had hoped, I think, for a number of different reasons. But anyway, that is what they're telling everybody to get a good game plan on. I will say this. I know people do a lot of Zoom meetings right now. I did read an article yesterday that everybody may want to kind of Google and read for yourself, but it said hackers are having a heyday right now with Zoom. So I'm not real sure what all that's about, but it just said that if they were able to basically get in through Zoom and get your Windows address and some different things like that. So it may be worth reading for everybody. Have a lot of scammers that try to take advantage of things like this, unfortunately. Finishing back to the chart here, make sure that you have hot water. Again, I heard the CDC say the other day in the interview, the head of the CDC said that is not as big a deal as people want to make it out to be right now. Cold water's fine. It's going to do the same thing. They say that face masks are not necessary for the general public. However, I do think that they're looking at a new theory on the masks in the last 2 to 3 days, and you may see them come back and change that currently. The main thing right now, and me working for a supply company, I can tell you how hard it is to find face masks and gloves. My company puts first responders first. We put hospitals first, meaning they're going to get those supplies above anyone else. And we are having a great deal of difficulty coming up with masks. Gloves have started becoming an issue currently. And I think a lot of it is because of the order that the president did sign. A lot of these are going straight from the manufacturer to the healthcare industries now, which is fine. That's where they need to be. And until that gets satisfied, you'll continue to see shortages on masks, gloves, and that type of thing, the PPE. But as long as we're getting to the healthcare workers, believe me, they need it worse than anybody else right now. Again, in lieu of not having a mask per se, if they do change their theory on this and they decide to go back and say, hey, it's going to be better for everybody to wear a mask, I think that's sometime to come, because I think they're going to have to get the supply chain fixed. And currently it does have some flaws in it right now. So anyway, in lieu of not having masks, please stand 6 feet away from people and be very aware of people that are around you, and make sure you leave that room in there. I know a lot of this is redundant information, I know I've said the same things over and over throughout, but listen, right now, repetitiveness and redundancy are what we need to do to get a point across, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to do our part and make sure that we can keep people healthy. Obviously, at home, one other thing you can do here is to make sure that you're using disposable towels in your home. Do not use regular hand towels per se at your kitchen sink or sinks where you wash your hands or your family wash their hands. Obviously, the virus can live on that towel. So disposable towels are what they're recommending currently. I do not disagree with that. I know they're a little bit hard to find in the grocery stores, but I think that part of the supply chain seems to be getting better for toilet paper and paper towels alike. We're seeing some improvements there right now, so I hope that continues. But do try to use disposable towels when you can. And, of course, last but not least, please stay home if you're sick. If you don't feel good at all, especially right now, don't chance it. Just make sure that you and your family, anybody at my house right now, again, it may sound paranoid, but I'm checking my temperature at least 6 to 7 times a day just to make sure that, that I don't have fever. That's just a real concern to me right now. So at any rate, Aaron, I think we are at the disinfectant slide now, and I think I'm going to turn this thing over to you if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great information.
And then I'll come back in a few minutes and comment on a couple of slides and then be ready to take questions at the end.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what are some best practices regarding cleaning and disinfecting both your home and or your business? One of the things is we got to get the terminology straight. When we have clients ask us, can you clean this building? Clean means a bunch of different things to a bunch of different people. And so when we talk about cleaning, it just describes the process of basically removing contaminants from a surface, dirt, soils, etc., but not necessarily killing anything that like a pathogen that could harm you. And so cleaning is basically removing something from the surface so it looks visually clean. Sanitizing is the act of reducing, not killing completely, but reducing the amount of bacteria, viruses, or fungi on the surface. And then disinfecting is we have now killed microscopic organisms on the surface. And what level of disinfecting takes place is based on the product being used. So it's really important to, when somebody asks us, hey, can you clean our building, to ask them what they mean. Do you mean sanitize? Do you mean disinfect? Or do you just mean make it look pretty? So really important that we have our definitions straight on this. So disinfecting, again, disinfectants are chemical agents when applied to a surface, destroy bacteria, viruses, fungi, molds, mildews, etc., again, based on the product being used. So disinfecting versus sanitizing. What is the difference between actually killing a certain amount of bacteria on a surface versus just reducing? Again, sanitizing is reducing the amount of bacteria. And the key differences basically here are what chemical is being used and what claims is that chemical making about the efficacy of its product, what surface is being cleaned. For example, a textile, a carpet, a piece of upholstery is going to have a different outcome or response to a certain chemical than, say, a hard surface like granite or plastic, or as you were mentioning a bunch there, Steve, cardboard and glass as well. And then thirdly, what is the dwell time? And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but what is the dwell time of the product on the surface to do the job that it says it will do or won't do? A great example of this is, on the carpet side of our company, we never claim disinfectant properties on carpet or any textile for that matter, because you can't. The surface of those products is too porous to actually disinfect and kill 99.x number of nines bacteria on the fiber. So we claim sanitize. We can reduce, but we can't eliminate. So a good way to understand this is how the industry talks about them. So they talk about kill rates versus, which basically are key loggers. So hang with me here. We're going to go a little deep. Kill rates, and you'll see this on products, talk about it's a 3 log 10 kill. Some may say 6 log 10 kill. You may see a 3 log 5 kill. There's a variety out there. So what are those? Well, a 3 log 10 kill is 3 digits, so 99.9%, and then the number 10 is in 10 minutes or less. So if you have a 3 log 10 kill product, you're going to get a 99.9% kill rate in 10 minutes or less. 6 log obviously would be a 99.9999% in 10 minutes or less. And then hospital grade, when we talk about hospital grade or commercial cleaners, they should be at least 99.99%. When it comes to specific products. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, jump in here on this slide
real quick,
too.
just before you go to that chart, and I just wanted to make one more. So on a 3 log kill, just for everybody listening, these would be products that you would find in Walmart, such as your Pine Sols, such as your Lysols. Matter of fact, subconsciously, you'll probably remember it kills 99.9. That's been on their advertisement for years. What that really means is generally if you're mixing those chemicals, those are going to mix at about 2 ounces per gallon. A lot of people mix them a lot stronger than that because, quite frankly, when you're home, you're using a glug method, you're generally not measuring it out. 2 ounces per gallon of 2 ounces of product per gallon of water is not a lot of product, is my point. But even if you make that stronger, it's important to understand your log kill will still be a 99.3. It's the way the chemical is built. So you're not going to increase killing by making a product stronger.
Yeah, in fact, what you'll end up doing is increasing residue left behind or damaging the product or the surface that you're applying the product to. Give us a little insight on this chart, Steve.
I knew you were going to do that to me. All right. No, you're good. You're good. Okay, so basically on this chart, I hope everybody can see this, and we'll just kind of run through this as quick as possible. If you'll look at the grid down at the bottom, you have 1 log, 2 log, 3 log, goes all the way through 6 log. And a part of each one of those, you'll see, 90%, 99%. A 3 log kill is 99.9, as we already indicated. So for every 9 represented, it just means that is the log kill, the equivalent to the log kill that you would have. For example, in situations right now, I know Aaron's company, and I know my hospital accounts, and even in school districts that are still trying to take care of some things right now. Most of them are closed, but they're still doing some cleaning. We are using 6 log kill chemicals for that. We're not going to play around. We want to make sure that we have efficacy data that shows the effect. That's basically a data sheet, shows the effectiveness of a product. And we want to make sure that we have 6 log kill. We want to, bigger, badder, stronger in this particular situation. And so what happens is that this is, when you're talking about key loggers, you're trying to reduce the number of colony forming units on a surface. So if you basically have something that kills, well, let's just go for the last one. If you have something that has a 6 log kill and you have 6 nines basically on for 99.999, then you are only going to leave 1 colony forming unit behind. Whereas if you're using a 3 log kill, which is 99.9, again, like you would use in your residential areas, then you are going to, let me pull this down here real quick, you're going to leave about 1,000 colony forming units behind after you clean. And so obviously we want a better clean in office areas right now. We want a better clean in healthcare areas. So we're going to use something that has a 6 log kill to it. This is also true in hand sanitizers, which we'll get to here in just a little while.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And again, that chart that we showed back here, go back 2 slides here. Keep this slide is so important. The type of chemical involved, the type of surface being cleaned, and the length of product dwell time. Labels on bottles are so important to understand not only how effective the product will be, but also the proper use of the product to get exactly what this chart is showing. If you have a hospital grade sanitizer or disinfectant, a 6 log kill, but the instructions aren't followed. For example, a lot of them have 10-minute dwell times. So you've got to leave that product on there. It's got to be on there, that surface, 10 minutes before it will do what they say as far as the 6-log kill. One of the product, we're not going to cover every product, but basically just wanted to throw a few of these out there. One of the products that Steve sells that we purchase and use in so many of our facilities is this product here. It's made by Betco, a US-based company, pH7Q. Q stands for quaternary disinfectant. This is a hospital grade product. It mixes at about a 1/2 ounce per gallon of water. Again, Steve, you mentioned the glug method. Man, that's one thing I see so much in this industry is to take the cap off and just pour a little bit in there. But really only needs about a 1/2 ounce. Yeah. 1/2 ounce per gallon of water kills, it has a 6-log kill rate in 10 minutes. So 99.9999, and can be used on almost every surface. It's a great product.
Yes, it
this
is.
product here
one
is
of the other things.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was just going to add that it is the pH7Q is I want to stress it is a neutral pH chemical, and take you back to 6th grade science real quick for everybody listening. It's just neutral pH just means that it is dead center basically in a pH scale, which means it's almost the equivalent of water when you break it right down. This is still a cleaner, and it's a very effective cleaner. The great news about it is pH7 generally means that because it is neutral, it wouldn't bother somebody's skin per se if it was still wet on the surface and they actually put their arm down or their hand down on a surface. Generally, it's not going to affect them in that manner. So it does make it a very safe chemical to use on top of everything else.
Awesome. This product here is QuatStat 5. This one here is the same mixture ratio. It's a 1/2 ounce per gallon of water. Has the same kill log, 6 kill log. Now this one is in 5 minutes. So you notice the 5 there. It's got a 5-minute kill time versus a 10-minute kill time. And the same thing here, it can be used on most surfaces. Great product. Very good for hospital related accounts as well. Bleach. Let's talk about bleach. Man, if there's any one product I think that gets misused more, I don't think there's anything that beats bleach. Bleach was first introduced really back in the 18th century. There had been some forms around it prior, but it was really one of Napoleon's scientific experts that really came up with what we use, or the closest thing similar to what we use today. And it was really made for one simple thing: whitening. In the 1750s, for instance, the fastest way to whiten clothes was actually mixing sour milk and lye together, and then it took about 12 hours. So when bleach came along, it was a drastic improvement over what they had been using previously. So the primary purpose, again, was to whiten clothing, but during the start of World War II, it began to see a change and started being used as a sanitizer and disinfectant for multiple things during that time. It's a 3-log kill. So like Steve talked about earlier, this is a household product, 99.9% kill log rate. And once mixed, it's only got a shelf life for up to 24 hours. So you begin to lose and have minimal effect after that time. One side note, bleach is actually the #1 cause of accidental poisonings in the U.S. There's more than 50,000 cases per year of poisonings with bleach. And also deaths as a result of that as well. More than anything, one of the things I don't like about bleach is it smells. If you've ever walked into somewhere, maybe to eat or otherwise, and you've got a heavy bleach smell that hits you, there's nothing more that makes you uncomfortable or even irritates you, especially if you have some respiratory sickness as well. And then one of my favorite questions, Steve and I were talking one time, one of my favorite questions was, he asked me, what's the correct mixture ratio for bleach? And that was, it's a question that was hard to answer. How do you mix bleach? And so, Steve, you jump in there. How do you mix bleach?
Sure.
If I'm using
sure.
bleach.
For purposes, there's a couple of different ways to mix it, but for the purposes of what you're wanting to do in your house right now, and again, I want to, before I tell you the mixture on it, if I may, I want to step back. Bleach is really not a cleaner. I know it's going to blow a lot of people away. I know my mom, I can remember her shopping at Safeway years ago, buying the bleach and ammonia and different things like that to clean the house. But I've had 3 different chemists from 3 different manufacturers in the last 10 years that have told me bleach is not the cleaner everybody wants to believe it is. And their question to me has been, if bleach is such a great cleaner, then how come you have to add detergent to your washing machine? And it's a great question, and I can't answer it. And the reason I can't answer it is because bleach is, in fact, not a cleaner per se, as much as it is a whitener, a brightener, and a killer. And that kind of goes back to what you were saying, back in World War II, how they were using it. And it really was just meant to disinfect, sanitize, but it's never really meant to clean anything. My company currently handles the laundry chemistry for Spine and Joint Hospital. And so we use 5 different chemicals there. The first 2 chemicals are actually what I'm doing the cleaning with. The bleach is designed to basically kill what's in the wash wheel along with the temperature of the water. And then just make sure that the white sheets come back out white again. So it brightens them and whitens them. But the actual cleaning process is done with detergents. So I know that's a step outside the boundaries there. Let me bounce back to what Aaron's question was, which was, what is the proper mix? The proper mix for what you're doing right now is 1 part bleach to 9 parts water. And if you'll use that as your chemistry at home, you'll have something that will be effective, against killing bacteria on your countertops and that type of thing. But I'm going to let Aaron finish, because he's going to fixing to get into some of the tools of rags and things like that are going to help you if you're using bleach and you're just bound and determined to use it as to clean. You're going to have to use something else to make it work. So go ahead, Aaron.
Awesome. I'll throw this last product in there too real quick. This is one that we use to sanitize, again, all our soft surfaces. Benefect Decon 30. It's a botanical cleaner made from the essential oil thyme. It's got a 99.99% kill rate in 30 seconds, and it has 0 VOC. So again, unlike bleach that can be often irritating to lungs and respiratory, it's an incredible product that we both use and sell that's great for safe in-home cleaning. So how do you use products? Whether you're using these products or other products, I'll recommend microfiber every day of the week and some. It's better than cotton. Cotton tends to push the dirt around, you can see from this illustration here, rather than absorb. And there's a reason for that. Microfiber, the threads on microfiber are 1/100th of the diameter of a human hair. In fact, they're 1/120th of the diameter of a strand of silk. And there's approximately 200,000 fibers in 1 square inch of a typical microfiber towel. So the absorption capability of microfiber is unbelievable compared to cotton. In fact, microfiber can hold and absorb 7 times its weight in liquid. Cotton, one of the downsides of cotton is that organic materials can also harbor, it's made from organic materials and it can harbor odor and bacteria, whereas microfiber does not as much. Cotton also, one side note on cotton, it also requires a break-in period. So the cottonseed oil can dry slowly and leave lint behind as well, whereas microfiber is a lint-free cleaning. One thing that if you're interested and you want it, please shoot me an email at the end of the slide. I have a complete laundry program for microfiber. A lot of people launder microfiber wrong, and within a few launder cycles, it's ineffective as a rag, and there's a reason for that. So I'll send it out later. I won't spend a whole lot of time on it today, but microfiber is the choice as far as cleaning goes. Let's go to the next slide here. Proper cleaning process. So how do you use things in tandem? One, you need to dilute disinfectant properly. Steve talked about that. I talked about it. You need to make sure that things are being diluted at the right ratios. Fully dampen your microfiber rag. Again, if it's a log 10 kill product, that means the surface has to stay wet for 10 minutes. And if you're just lightly misting with a trigger spray bottle onto a surface, chances are, and then running a dry microfiber over it, chances are it's not going to stay wet for that time, and it's not going to do the job the product claims that it can do against certain bacteria and viral infections. Thirdly, mechanical cleaning action is so important. We're going to talk about electrostatic fogging here in just a second, as well as just general fogging. I'm sure, again, everybody's been watching the news. These things are out there. But mechanical cleaning action is basically that action where you simply take the rag and you run it across the surface. The best illustration for this is when I wash my car and I spray it with a hose. I'm not going to get it as clean as if I'm spraying it with a hose and hitting it with my sponge and actually causing agitation on the surface as well. So mechanical cleaning action in your cleaning process is so important. And then lastly, proper dwell time. We've talked about that all through this, that certain chemicals need proper dwell time for them to be a disinfectant and to kill at the rates they say that they're going to kill at. And then we hit on this a little bit earlier too, but making sure that your focal points, your desktops, your touch points, your phones, doorknobs and door handles, elevator buttons, these things are sanitized and disinfected more frequently than some of the other areas that maybe aren't getting the hands-on or the touch points that other areas might.
Hey, Aaron.
Yeah.
Let me add one more thing to that list that we didn't get it on there, but anyway, currently, and this may come as a surprise to some people, but the COVID-19 is just the transfer points are critical on all these high touch points that Aaron's showing you here on the slide. One more I'd like to add to that is going to be gas pumps, something that we don't think about very often.
Yeah.
If you have an opportunity at the gas station to grab a towel, they usually have them there. Grab that and grab the gas pump with the towel between your hand and the gas pump, because that is just a tremendous transfer point right now for things. Something I don't normally think about, but it was in some articles that I was reading over not long ago. I also heard the CDC make reference to it not long ago. So I do think that's something people need to be aware of.
Yep, absolutely. And again, you think, I've heard some, I was talking to my wife the other day and she was talking, wipe down the handle with a bleach wipe or something. Well, if you can wait 10 minutes, you'll be good. But that really is the best way to just use something other than your hand to touch the pump, if that's a concern. Absolutely. As far as disinfectant fogging, Steve and I have talked numerous times about this. It's all over the news right now. People are coming in with PPE uniforms and masks and everything, and they're going around and they're fogging everything. It's interesting. The CDC actually doesn't support disinfectant fogging. These are two articles here that are mentioned. Do not perform disinfectant fogging for routine purposes. And there's a reason for that. Steve, fill us in on quats and breathing quats in as far as disinfectants.
Well, what it is the quat could be totally safe. Quaternary disinfectant are really a lot of different type chemicals. They can be safe to just run through a regular trigger spray type bottle. But when you atomize that down any smaller than that, you make those particulates a lot easier to get into your lungs. And a lot of these fogging machines, they'll tell you to wear, eye goggles and masks with them. And that right there is telling you that it's in and of itself, it's probably not real safe to do that. One of the main things about the fogging that I go back to, I'm just a very practical person, but I look at the fact that these hospitals in this area are not using foggers. Part of that is because they have very strict air quality within the hospitals. The other part of it is, again, the efficacy data just does not support the fact that fog can stay on that surface for the proper kill claim in order to get that surface disinfected. Yep,
absolutely. We've had a few actual requests for that service, and we have not offered it for that very reason. There's other ways that are safer as well as do just as effective and more effective of a job on that. So final points, really, what does your program look like? From products to processes to equipment, what does your program look like? It involves people, proper training, and staff that follow through on that training, processes that work, and then also products that do the job they say they're going to do, as well as have the what you're looking for, whether that's a kill rate or a clean rate. What are they looking for? So how to build a program. Steve and I would love to help you in any way possible build out a program. If you do have any questions, obviously we've got our emails up here. I think I know we went a little long, so we'll take any questions. Feel free to email us as well.
Aaron, if we may, I know I missed a slide. I believe it was slide number 9. And it was just talking about hand washing versus hand sanitizer. Could we go back to that real quick? Because I don't want to miss that if we don't have to.
Yeah, sure. Let me go back to that.
Okay. Sorry about that. I think I just skipped right over that one.
There you go.
There we go. Perfect. Okay. I'm just going to cover this very quickly, but it is that important. The CDC has always said and continues to say that hand washing is the number one way to basically protect yourself from any kind of infection whatsoever. That has been that way for a long time. I used to hear that. I mean, I left, Mother Francis back in 2004, and for the entire 13 years I was there, that was what was being said. So it is nothing new. We've heard it for a long time. One of the things that I want to cover on that real quick is that you must, again, this is redundant information. You've been hearing it. Wash your hands thoroughly and aggressively for 20 seconds. Get the backs of them, the fingertips, everything you can think of. I mean, you need to have that hand totally submerged in suds, and then you need to wash it very, very thoroughly to let the water get all the soap off. With the soap goes the soil. With the soil goes the germs, and that's how that works. So make sure that you leave your hands as pH neutral as possible after flooding them with water. The other thing that a lot of people don't realize is when your secondary way of cleaning your hands would be a hand sanitizer. Well, you also need to use that for 20 seconds. That does not need to be any less than washing your hands. So get enough on your hands to where you can keep, the lathering going for at least 20 seconds. That is very, very critical when you're using hand sanitizer. Use it correctly. Make sure you fully engulf your hands, that type of thing. Mainly those are going to be alcohol sanitizers. Are going to be over 62% alcohol, so your hands should dry quickly and really should dry without a lot of tackiness or stickiness to them. So one of the things that I really want to cover with you here, and this is kind of shocking to a lot of people, but Aaron and I both, we look at a lot of studies, university studies in our industry. One of the studies that has always jumped out at me for the last few years, and it really hasn't changed much. That's the unfortunate part. But right now, it's very, very telling. The study shows that 94% of the women wash their hands after using the restroom, as opposed to men, which only 72% of men wash their hands. So the point I want to make here is that right now, if you have sons or grandsons, you're taking them to the restroom, and I know we're not sitting down in restaurants anymore right now, but, anytime that you're around them, please teach them to wash their hands, because they're going to go to school and they're going to do exactly at school what they see, us doing. And so it's just really critical right now that we give them some good things, solid habits to look at, and try to start doing a better job than what we've been doing. If these numbers are accurate, which they pretty much, there's 5 different universities that are a part of this study, so I'm assuming they're pretty accurate. They have been for the last 2 to 3 years. So anyway, just a very pointed, a big point to make there. As you're washing your hands, if you need to know what 20 seconds looks like because you're not wearing a watch, again, just use your, say your ABCs twice, obviously. There's a very good video. I was telling Aaron about it the other day when we were putting this together, but they have tan latex gloves on, and they take some black shoe polish and they start working that shoe polish across those gloves. And it's amazing how long it takes to cover the gloves. And of course, that's to emulate what you would be doing with soap. But washing your hands right now, it needs to be extremely thorough. And the other thing I would say to that is make sure anytime you get a chance to use soap and water over hand sanitizer, please do it. If there's hand sanitizer there afterwards, feel free to use that if it makes you feel better. But you're going to do a better job just by simply washing your hands with soap and water. And that does not mean you need to use an antibacterial soap. Any kind of soap is fine. So the CDC has never said you had to use an antibacterial to get a better result. But I just didn't want to miss that slide, Aaron. I'll turn it back over to you.
Absolutely. I fact-checked you as well, Steve, and the current COVID-19 is actually favoring men over women. So it's interesting that I think it goes right along with that fact about men washing their hands less. I think it's 55%. Yeah. It's a statistic I saw this morning as far as infecting men versus women. So Well, we appreciate the chamber. We'd be glad to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you guys. Lots of great information. We have time for just a few questions here. The first one is asking, is ultraviolet light effective for disinfecting? And if so, what exposure time is needed?
That's a great question.
Can I take that, Aaron?
Steve and I have had multiple conversations about this. Absolutely.
First of all, there's a robot that's in Pittsburgh right now, and in 3 other states. Her name is Rosie, after the George Jetson cartoon, you may remember. But Rosie, from what I understand, she's an ultraviolet light. What they do is they go in and they clean the rooms in the hospitals, and then Rosie is contacted. Rosie can ride an elevator. Rosie can come into a room. The only thing she can't do is shut a door behind her, is my understanding. But a little head pops up with ultraviolet light, and it starts zooming the room for about 4 minutes. And within that time frame, there is a pretty significant kill ratio. The reason that that is happening right now is because, as of 2017, hospitals are responsible if you come in for a particular surgery or something, and then you contract a disease, or so let's say you got staph infection while you were in the hospital. Prior to January 2017, you would just basically file that on insurance. Maybe you stayed another 7 days till they got the staph infection under control and you were released. Well, now the hospital starts taking that bill. Insurance refuses to pay it as of January 2017. So now they're looking very hard at ultraviolet lights. What I will answer your question with, though, is that I don't think they have determined yet whether the ultraviolet light has a bearing on the COVID-19. That is the question that they haven't answered yet. But all in all, ultraviolet light is being used to disinfect surfaces in healthcare today.
Yep,
right.
It is the wave of the future. I strongly believe that, as far as what's coming and what we're going to continue to see come, as far as the uses of ultraviolet light in disinfection of surfaces. I strongly recommend the units that air conditioning companies are putting into even your home. You know, they can come and they can put one in, so all the air passing through your air conditioning unit passes over an ultraviolet light. They have different sizes and whatnot, but strongly recommend them for the disinfection of air in your home.
Well, that's
the only thing I will add to that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Go ahead and add your comment.
Okay. The only other thing I want to add to that, it does not take away from the need that Aaron, the point that Aaron made when he said that you have to have a mechanical action with a disinfectant to truly disinfect a surface. That still stands. The ultraviolet light would serve primarily as an insurance policy, if you will, just to make sure that, you know, everything got hit. But you would still want that aggressive action to actually clean the soil off the surface, because the soil is where the germs are going to stick to.
All right. We have another question. An apartment property manager is asking best practices in keeping the laundry rooms clean for residents to use.
Yeah, that's a great question. High traffic area. You know, you're going to get people in there. One of the hard things with that is not knowing when individuals go in. One thing I might suggest would be to add some hand sanitizer in there. Obviously, you want to post signs making them aware of best practices for keeping themselves clean. I would be happy to help. We have some stock ones that we can give you. Again, use that email. You know, and then making that a normal, you know, I know typically apartment unit complexes have 1 or 2 staff on site that do the flips of the units when they're open. And so one thing might be to add on a regular schedule the laundry room areas for, you know, when they make their rounds. Maybe they hit them in the morning and in the afternoon, kind of figure out what your high traffic times of the day are and add that to their route. That might be one suggestion.
Okay, super. We've got just about a minute left. We have maybe 2 more questions, so we're almost done. But if you need to get off, we understand. And this will be recorded, so you can come back and listen to the rest of it later. We're going to go ahead and answer 2 more questions, and then we'll be wrapping it up. One question is, how effective are fabric masks?
Yeah, that's a tough one. The CDC, for the longest time, they said, don't wear them. They're it's won't help you. And now they're leaning more. I think Steve, you mentioned this in the presentation. I think they're leaning more toward changing their view on that.
Yeah, I view it this way. We're still in some gray areas here until they get some more research done. And so what I will tell you is this. When they came out and they said not long ago, hey, don't wear the mask, that was really only because they needed healthcare to have them. And healthcare is dealing with a lot more than just COVID-19. They're dealing with VRE. They're dealing with a lot of different things that C. diff, different things like that, you're only going to find in a healthcare facility for the most part. And so because they're dealing with so many different things, it is very important that they're protected, obviously, and the respiratory systems are protected. And that's really the reason they came out and said that. Now, that's my own belief. I think you're going to see us all probably being recommended to wear some type of mask. So my point is this. Any type of filter is better than no filter at all, is what I would say.
Good point. The one last question, and this has to do with you go into the store, grocery store, the Walmart kind of store or whatever, and they have those wipes, right? And you wipe off the handle of your cart and you're on your way. How effective is that?
Not very effective. I mean, anything helps. Like Steve just mentioned with masks, anything is effective and anything helps. Again, you go back to those 3 points about what's the product that's being used, what does the label say on that product. So if the product says it's a 10-minute, kill time, then that surface needs to stay wet for up to 10 minutes. And so it's hard to say that you're removing, let's say the claim is 99.99% of bacteria. It's hard to say that you're actually doing that with just a quick wipe. And probably, I've used them. They dry in 30 seconds. So if that's a concern, I would recommend wearing gloves or bringing enough where you can keep that handle wet while you're shopping.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Well, fellas, it's time for us to wrap this up, and we certainly want to thank you both, Aaron and Steve, for taking time from your busy schedules to help us think through some of this stuff, get some good tips on keeping ourselves safe. And we want to just remind everybody that the role the Chamber plays in our community is to help create an economic environment that allows prosperity to occur. Leading people, leading prosperity is our tagline. And we know that economically, business-wise, we're going to come through this. It'll be rocky for a bit, but we'll come through this stronger than we've ever been. And so again, on behalf of the Chamber, Longview Chamber of Commerce, we appreciate those of you who have been on the call today. Thank you for being here. And again, Aaron and Steve, thank you. As one last reminder, the webinar has been recorded and will be made available on our website, longviewchamber.com. And if you've been on the line with us live, you will get an email later today or tomorrow with a link to listen again and share with others. So again, thank you. And that is all for now. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Sure. You're welcome. Thank you.